Good morning, everyone. I'm going to be talking today about basic chicken care and some of the things that I've learned that work, some of the things that I have learned that don't work. And again, there are so many different ways from so many different people. What works for me isn't going to work for you, obviously. It might be a good place to start and see, because some of the stuff I'm talking about is I'm choosing the easier of the options because, you'll see when I talk about the waters, mainly, and most of it's just preference, and that changes from person to person, so anything that you do is completely okay. It's not based on one thing or another. You're gonna create your own experiences. So let's get into this. If you see me keep looking down this way, I have a little reference sheet because I knew I was going to get off topic at some point, and I would like to remember where I'm at. Or know where I'm at, period. Okay. Well, the first one is water, so you won't have to wait very long. Waters they're not tricky, but I've seen people literally use just like a galvanized steel pail, plastic pail that you'd use to feed pigs. I have both because that's what when I first got into it, I stayed with some people who had chickens, and they used the older, more traditional one that has the screw-on lid at the top, a very narrow opening that's probably only like that big. That was not a good size, accurate size. But they had that one, and I was like, then we need that one. And that's where I also learned that you are going to create your own ways. I have three of those. Yes, I have three of those. I don't like those in the winter. They just don't work that well. I mean, they do work, but it's more you having to break ice, and then like the opening is so small you have to like. Last year I had to use a stick and break it, and I did not want to do that. But it did work. It worked very well. It's been a little while, but I think it stayed thawed longer. Like, it didn't freeze. I think all of them did. I don't know. Either all of them or that one. Again, I'm sorry. I can't remember. I also have the other one, which is, in my personal opinion, easier to clean. It's more hygienic, and it's my favorite. I would like to switch all of mine to that, but I'm not going to get rid of my other ones. We did pay money for those. So I'm going to continue using them. As much as I don't like them, it's still something that I'm going to use. And they hold more water, the screw-on lid ones. But the other one, I don't have one. But the little waters and feeders that you use for for chicks, it's kind of the same as that. I think the size is 3 gallons. Don't quote me on that because I don't know. It's not 5. I think it's 3 though. But you just turn the thing. I prefer those because even in the winter they're easy to clean and the ice doesn't build up, and they can drink as much as they need. And then I can dump it out at night. Easier, it's the same thing. But yeah, I just prefer those. Last year I actually dumped them out at in the winter. I dump all my waters out at night if it's gonna be freezing. I'll leave them sometimes, but once it starts getting down in like the 20s and the teens, single digits, I dump out my waters because I don't want to have to deal with frozen water. It's not fun to deal with, but it is a part of it. So if I don't stress about it, but I do prefer to dump them out the night before, and then in the morning just get up super early and dump them and pour water into them from that. I'm working on getting a frost-free hose thing, so that's hopefully in the works. But using that, and I will refill the waters every morning. That was more explaining than I wanted to do. This might be a long video, I'm sorry. Feeder. They have the regular ones, and you might not even know what I mean by regular ones. I should have gotten one. But it's the bottom has the places for like each chicken to eat. Like it's divided into little sections, so they can't like go. I don't know. It's kind of weird, and I don't know how to explain it very well. It is more of the traditional one, but we have gotten some other feeders, and we got it's a bee. We got a this bee needs to leave me alone. It's a yellow jacket. I don't know why it's here. We got some of the other feeders. I think it's a 5-gallon feeder. No, it's not. It's a gallon feeder. No, it is a 5-pound feeder. 5-pound feeder. I actually didn't use them because the tops got knocked off, so I was using them for my chicks this year. I find it's easier with chicks, and they're less likely to knock it off, so that's why I like it. And the chicks just really enjoy it, and it's easier when you have chicks, especially if they're kind of wild, to just fill up a feeder every other day. Again, there are benefits to filling it up every day because socialization. I'm working on that with some of mine that I hatched out. It was in a group of 30, and I didn't know which ones are hens until later, and yeah, figuring that out now, but that's another video. But that is my favorite feeder. I like them both, but see, that's what I'm talking about, preferences. The older ones I'll use for my adults, or the more traditional ones I'll use for my adults, and the newer ones I'll use for babies just because they hold more. And I throw my feed, like I'll have a feeder filled up, but during the day I'll throw feed out into their run and just let them eat from out there. I find that they prefer to be out there than inside the coop, and I keep it inside the coop so it doesn't get wet because that's awful. But yeah, I use both. I just use them for different things. Coop. I don't want to spend long on this, but there are so many different things that you can get with your coop, or for a coop. Your coop can be an old shed, a building that you bought. It can be one of the pre-made ones that all you have to do is assemble the pieces. It can be one that someone is giving you. It can be I have seen people use so many different things, and they are so creative. Be creative and stand out. That's all. That's the gist of it. I will talk about this for a second though. We bought a $500, almost $600 wooden gray coop because my mom bought it, but she liked the color of it, and it could hold a good amount of birds, and we were like, that's gonna work. It started rotting. It didn't hold up. It was not good. So we actually ended up switching to galvanized steel coops. I have 2 of those. Now they are smaller, they hold less birds, but I like them both. The wooden one just fell apart, so I wouldn't. If you're going to keep chickens long term and you're not gonna cover it with anything, you're not gonna do anything else, like you're not gonna put a tarp over top of it to where the rain doesn't really collect at the bottom, then I wouldn't use that. Or if you have another foundation for it to sit on, I would use the galvanized steel one, because even if it holds less birds, it still works really well. It hasn't rotten. It hasn't rotted. I have 2 of those, and they work really well. I think it was a new Tractor Supply release from 2021. Yeah, a new release from 2021, and they actually designed the coop because that one had no ventilation. It's just walls. And the ones that they redesigned for this year actually have a little vent on each of the top side panels. So we might end up getting one of those, but not really, because we're using this next option for my adult birds now. Those are going to be used for housing babies and chicks and so many other things. I bought a 10 by 8 galvanized steel building from Lowe's. We bought it last year before it got cold, and then it got cold, and we were like, we're going to build this in the spring. We didn't have a spring this year. It got way too hot, way too quick. It was ridiculous. So we're in the process of putting that up right now, even with it being too hot. Things aren't lining up though, so we're having to do some different approaches. We're going to go get another type of screw and drill, and just make our own holes and get this thing put together. And I will show all of that, of course, when it is done on Instagram and here on YouTube. The other coops that I have, I'm going to talk about them really quick. We built 2 hoop coops in We built them in 2020, and the first one we just used wooden panels around the side, or not panels, 2x4 boards on the side. I think one's 10 foot, another one's 5 foot, maybe 4 foot. Those work really well. And those were for meat birds. They were not long-term housing solutions. So I think we had 50 to 60 birds in there at one time, and I have 4 turkeys in there right now that are going to be processed. And we're going to be housing at least 6 turkeys for next year, maybe even 8 in them next year. And that one worked, but it was the 2x4 board. Sorry, I strayed from my conversation, or from my train of thought. It's 2x4 boards and then connecting on the end, and then we just used cattle panel and hooped it up, and then cut a piece for the back and then zip tied it all together. That has worked really well. We did the cattle panel, and then I did chicken wire around it because chicks can get through the cattle panel holes, obviously, and that has worked fantastic. And we have it to where like the whole front can come down, and I can get in there and do some things. I don't like it because I have to like waddle on my legs while squatting. And then the other one that we built is another hoop coop. We used PVC pipe. We used like the largest size you can possibly get for the bottom of that coop. And then we drilled holes in the top of each of them and used, like, not the smallest ones, but it's a 10-foot piece of, like, really fine ones. I'm sorry, I don't know measurements, y'all. And then put them in there. I think we have 6. And then in the middle of one of the sides, we did a door. That coop, okay, I don't like that coop. I think we made the door too small. If I could go back and redo it, I would do it differently. The door is really small. It is hard to get in there and clean it out. It's like that big. That looks big to y'all, but it's not that big. But yeah, I would probably have made it about half of, or a little bit, I would have made it probably 2 of what it is right now. And that would be easier to get in and out of. So, and then, okay. this is already longer than I would have wanted to talk about it, but I do believe this information is important. We also have a 10 by 10 dog kennel that was given to us when we got our puppies. That has actually been one of the best things that has worked. I'm going to say this really quick before I go on about that. The holes with the dog kennel they are too big for chicks, and predators can slip in and massacre things. So I think we had a 4 foot roll. Yeah, we had a 4 foot tall roll of chicken wire, and we just went all the way around once. It usually stops anything. And then on the top, it was a 10 by 10, so it's open, but we went and bought a tarp and then zip tied it to the top of it, and it has worked really well, except for the water collecting in it. I had put a stick in it during our first storm that happened, and I guess the water got too heavy and it broke through, but now I just put a bucket in there and the water drains into that, and they eat the water. They drink the water that comes out of it, or goes into the bucket. So it works. I don't like that, but I'm going to be keeping other chicks in there next year, and actually this year. I have hatching projects going right now. More on that later. Nesting boxes, or the dog kennel, sorry. The dog kennel works very well. By far my favorite. It hasn't rusted, hasn't had any problems, except for the tarp in the top. But I'm sure you could even find something. You could probably even make an actual roof and close in all the sides and make it like a really nice coop. I wanted to do that, but we haven't. We might end up doing that eventually, but lumber is expensive and we're not going to do that yet. Nesting boxes. Again, nesting boxes are your own preference. You can go buy the singular ones that they have at Tractor Supply. You can use an old tub. You can have one that's already on the pre-made coop. I have seen people use 5-gallon buckets. I have seen people use 2 tires that are stacked together with a top, and the first one has a little hole cut out just big enough for the hen to go in. Those work really well. 5-gallon buckets work. I'm trying to think about what else you could use. You could use anything. You can even make your own. Making your own, I think, is so much better. Just use what you have on hand and don't go out. Don't try to make any of the things that I'm talking about. Try to do it as not as cheap as possible, but something that's going to last. You'd want something that lasts rather than something that's really expensive, and that normally the things that are more expensive do tend to last longer. But it is all preference. If you want to go really cheap in the beginning because you don't know if you like it, do that. Or you only have 6 hens, 6 hens, go cheaper. And then if you do decide to scale up in the size of your flock, you can do something more expensive or more extravagant, or if you know that you want to continue doing that. Also, another thing that I just thought about is roosting bars. I did not put that on my list. Roosting bars are essential, I'd say. Chickens like to roost. And make sure you have enough for all of your hens. I actually don't have enough for all my hens, so some of my hens are sleeping on a roosting bar, and some of them are sleeping below them and in the nesting boxes in my little brown coop, in the brown galvanized steel coop. I had the other coop and then we moved it because we were trying to get the building and then it didn't work. I have too many in that coop right now, but I also have a large run, so they don't need to stay in there. I don't like that they're sleeping like that because their pecking order, I wouldn't say that it changes based on where they sleep, but it does represent where their pecking order is. So the hens who are on the top sleep on the top of the pecking order, sleep on the roosting bar, or just the ones that go up earlier. I have found that it's actually the ones that go to sleep, that put themselves up sooner, will get on the roosting bar first, obviously. And the other ones just fell in. Some of them have actually started sleeping outside with it being so hot. They will sleep right next to the water, which isn't bad, but it just shows that it is hot. Dust bathing. Dust bathing is something that chickens need to help fight against mites, lice, and there's one other that I'm forgetting. But if you don't have that, they're more likely to get mites or lice. If you do have that, it just means that they're less likely. The chances of them getting it are lower. They can still get it though. Mine actually haven't had a problem with anything, and I don't have like a designated spot for dust bathing with sand or anything like that. One thing that is really good, that if you're going to do anything for your hens, or not at all and you just want to do something every once in a while, every couple months, ash is really good. Like after you have a fire and you have a whole bunch of stuff, let it cool down of course first, but ash is really good and it has the most beneficial things for the dust bathing. It's also works in gardens, all of that. More on that in a gardening video though. I'm gonna fly through these next ones just because they're all kind of simpler. Feed. You want to make sure that you are... Okay, there are many different ways you can go with feed. You can do layer feed. You can do... it's really the only feed is layer feed, but you can do any poultry, fowl feed, and that seems to work. If you are wanting to get the most out of your hens, do a higher calcium one. I don't supplement. Well, I actually do I put calcium in there a couple times a year just to help strengthen the eggs. But more on that in a second. Scratch is optional. Mine prefer it. Not prefer it. They like it because it is something different. I get a 6 scratch grain. There is, I also get like a 50-pound bag of sunflower seeds, black oil sunflower seeds, throw them in there. They love them. You can mix that in there, and it works. Layer feed obviously has more calcium, so you can do different things with it. You can give it to them dry. You can ferment it. I'm gonna do a video on that later. Not today. Fermenting is pretty easy, in my opinion. I've slacked off on it because it is very time intensive. Not really, but we were dividing it up into multiple. I was dividing it up into multiple different coops, so it took longer to do that, and I just didn't like it. How long it took, especially in the winter and then when it was hot. But I should have been doing it all along because it does save you money. More on that later. Calcium, you can get a bag of calcium from Tractor Supply, small bag, 50-pound bag. All of them work. All of them... Sorry. All of them work for sure. Another way that you can give them calcium is after you're done cooking, or if you're using anything that uses eggs and you're done cooking, crack the egg, keep all the eggshells in a corner, ground them up a little bit, not too fine into a powder, but just mash them up into different pieces so they're not all stuck together, and feed them back to your hens. My hens have, since I wasn't feeding calcium for a long time, not for a long time, but for a while, they actually started eating their eggs. And them eating their eggs is really showing that they need extra of something. They're missing something in their diet that they really need, enough to where they're cracking their own eggs and potential children to get that extra thing that they need. So it is either calcium or I don't know the names of a whole bunch of stuff in it, but it's something that they need that they're cracking it for. Grit is... I don't buy grit. I do sometimes, but I don't throw it in, or we don't go out of our way to make sure that they have it all the time. I've heard people say that they really need it. I've had people say that they've had serious problems from not getting it. So again, work on your hens. If your hens have grown up having it twice a week, continue doing that twice a week. It's going to be more important for them because they were raised with it. Just to not put their bodies through a little bit of a shock. Grit is really just small rocks. If you don't know, small rocks, stones, different pieces. I'm not talking about like something small compared to us. I'm talking like very tiny. Well, or not very tiny, but I don't have anything to like represent anything. Probably the size of like a cucumber seed, if you know that. All garden related. But that is about the size of a cucumber seed, and that actually works pretty well. Having a run is, of course, optional. If you are keeping 4 hens in a large coop, you don't particularly need a run. If you are keeping my gray coop, I'm going to use that for an example. If I kept 4 hens in that gray coop would be all that I needed. It says 14. And this is where I want everyone to listen and to pay attention. It says it can hold 14 birds. That does not mean that it can hold 14 birds just as a standalone coop with no run, no nothing. You might want to jam-pack 14 birds in there. Your birds are going to be smaller, they're not going to be as healthy, and diseases are going to be higher. I had, on all of my coops, my hens have access to a larger area. If they don't, I keep them in any coop. I make sure that there is no overcrowding and that it works. And it's as clean as possible all the time. The people who make the coops, they advertise something that can say 14 birds or 6 birds. My smaller coops, the galvanized steel ones that we bought last year, says six chickens. I have found that does and that does not work. You can fit 6 chickens in there, yes. Mine fit 10 on a roosting bar. So if you want them to have a roosting bar, 6 will work. The bottom space, not big enough for 6 though. But I have the run, so it does work. And I have, I think, 21, 22, somewhere in there, in one coop. Because the run is large enough to support all of them comfortably. They can get away from each other if they want to. They can do whatever they want to do. At night it does get a little bit crowded, and that is something that I, as a chicken owner, am responsible for, and I am working towards improving that with my 10x8 building. But things that they advertise, do your own research, talk to a chicken keeper, ask how many birds they would put in there. If you know someone at Tractor Supply, or talk to somebody who has chickens, ask them to look at your coop, or just ask them to look at your coop and ask them how many birds they would put in there without a run. Or if you put a run, you can kind of put as many as you want in there with a run, but then you can't. I would just do it until the roosting bar space gets full. If you have more than one roosting bar in there, it's gonna be more birds. So you see what I mean? It's all fluctuating, and nothing is ever the same. Anyway, you can keep 20 hens in a large run easily. I also let mine out in my yard a lot. I do it more in the fall and the winter because we have a family of Cooper's hawks that frequents around here. They live up in the top of the neighborhood, but they attacked 3. 1 survived, and yeah, she's still alive, but they come by and they sit on top of buildings and they watch. So make sure your run is safe, make sure your coop is safe, make sure you don't have overcrowding, and make sure you're also not getting too many to where you cannot take care of them. Chicken meth is real, y'all. And then, so just do different things. Talk to chicken owners, talk to anybody who has chickens, and they can help steer you in the best direction. I know it's going to be tempted to go and look online, and that's what a lot of us did at first. That's what a lot of us do at first. But the real experience and the real gain comes from having them, having birds, any birds. So I do encourage all of you to not just look on the internet. Some things are very helpful, some things are not, and some people are going to tell you one thing and then say it's a must-do. It's not. Not everything you see is a must-do. I strongly urge you to talk to your chicken friends. If you don't have any chicken friends, make some chicken friends. If you have Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, anything, find someone. Instagram's a little bit easier, and Facebook can be, but type in hashtag chicken, find somebody, send them a message, just ask if you can ask them some questions about chickens. They would be more than happy to help you. They have been there themselves when they might have had someone who helped them, or they might have had no one. So do that, and they would be more than welcome to help you, I can guarantee you. And if one person doesn't want to help you or doesn't message you back, talk to somebody else, because someone is going to be willing to help you. So please do your research when you're doing this, and also not just that kind of research, not just online research, but talk to people and try to pick their brain a little bit and just try to get some of their knowledge that they've acquired through keeping their birds. My last point is treats. We give ours, well, I grow a pretty large garden, so I give them garden scraps. I gave them the corn after I pulled it. I gave them the beans, the beans stalks, the Armenian cucumber stuff. I give them anything you can give them. I've heard some things that say tomato leaves are poisonous to chickens. I didn't have a problem before. I've stopped feeding it to them, and we just get rid of them another way. But that is one way to do it, is feed them to your chickens. But I've heard that the nightshades are, well, not nightshades. I've specifically heard tomato leaves are not good for them, or the vines. Potatoes are toxic to chickens. They know not to eat them. I have thrown them in there, and because I've forgotten and I've been forgetful, my chickens will not touch them. I'll go back a week later, they'll be buried, or they'll still be there. They will not touch them. They know what's poisonous to them most of the time, and so if you throw something in there and they don't eat it, maybe not throw that in there again. But really anything you can put in there can go in there and they'll eat. We give them the calcium, which is kind of a treat, but not really. It's more of an essential. It's the calcium. We also, whenever we clean out our fridge once a week, we have a whole bunch of old vegetables and fruits and things like that. If we have that, we don't always. We'll give it all to them, and they love having that treat. In the summer it works because it's cool from being in the fridge, so then you throw it out there and it's just a cool refresher. We've also gotten those 25-pound flock blocks. They work really well. I think I had 20 in there when I did it. My 20 hens loved it. It took them 3 or 4 days to eat the whole thing. The first day they were unsure of it, so if you're gonna do that, maybe start when they're a little bit younger than mine. Or mine are a year old, and a year and 2 years old, and they just got introduced to it, but they loved it. Grass clippings. When you cut your grass and you put them in a bag, don't throw them away. Throw them in there with your chickens if they don't have grass. They love scratching through things and finding different things. So a whole plethora of different things that they can choose from and eat and everything. And each hen's gonna have their own preferences as well. They're just like people. Some of them are gonna eat everything. Some are only gonna eat the tomatoes, or some are only gonna eat the cantaloupe or anything. So it's all different. Another thing is enrichment. I didn't have those written down, but enrichment and just different things for them to scratch through. Scratching around is a chicken's nature. They want to scratch around. They're going to scratch around whether you have anything for them to scratch around in or not. I have extra hay from last year, and I've thrown in a flake or two and just let them scratch that around. They love it. It gives them something to do. And I'll sprinkle food inside of the hay, the flake of hay, and it'll keep them busy for 30 minutes or longer. I might do that. I might do a couple flakes too. I've done that. Having a couple flakes and having multiple hens working in different areas, so they're not all just on one little flake of hay. They absolutely love it though. But yeah, they love scratching around. Enrichment is really good. Now, this is a lengthy video. So if you've made it this far, thank you. But that's just some of the that is really the basics. I think I broke it down a little bit too much. But I do think this is all incredibly necessary, especially with the coop. The coop things. Coops can be so different. The runs, housing, all of that. It's so important. And feed is I feel like all of this is very essential. This just works for me. Again, find your own ways. Your own ways. My ways aren't gonna work for everybody. I live in Central Virginia, so we get kind of mild winters. They're not really bad, but we can get really bad. So then we get hot summers. So my waters work for the heat. The more modern ones, they work for the heat best. So I like those, and they also work for the winter best. So just find things that work for you. Not everything is going to be the same. Again, you can do anything that you'd like. You can choose not to follow anything that I just said. Either way, I do believe that it's all important, though. Making sure that you are sticking to some sort of guidelines and have a basis for what you're doing is very essential. But thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. The next one will not be this long, I can guarantee you. But, yes, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.